You're staring at a dozen gaming PC listings and wondering if any of them are actually worth the cash, or if you'll end up with a box that looks great on paper but lets you down the first time you launch a new title. That hesitation is real. No one wants to spend a few $100s on a system that can't hold a steady 60 frames per second in the games they love, or that turns their bedroom into a mini factory floor. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The CyberpowerPC Gamer Xtreme VR tries to answer that exact dilemma. It's marketed as a plug-and-play rig that's ready for VR, packed with an Intel Core Ultra 5225F, an RTX 5060GB, 32GB of DDR5 memory, and a massive 2TB PCIe 4.0 SSD. At first glance, the spec sheet sounds like a future-proof promise, but let's break down what those numbers actually mean once the tower is sitting on your desk. First off, the CPU. The Core Ultra 5225F is a 10-core, 12-thread processor that sits a step above the typical i5-12400 you'd find in a budget build. In everyday use, streaming, chatting on Discord, or running background recording software, it feels snappy enough that you won't notice lag between switching windows. When you launch a demanding title like Cyberpunk 2077 or Elden Ring and push the graphics settings up, the CPU rarely becomes the bottleneck. The GPU takes over that role. Speaking of the GPU, the RTX 5060 sits in the sweet spot between entry-level and high-end cards. It's built on NVIDIA's Ada Lovelace architecture, so you get DLSS 3 support and ray tracing, but you won't be maxing out ultra settings at 4K. In practice, on a 1080p 144Hz monitor you'll see stable 8090 frames per second in most modern games with medium-high settings, and on a 1440p 60Hz screen you'll still be comfortably above 60 frames per second in titles like Valorant, Fortnite, and Apex Legends. The real test comes with VR. When I slipped a Meta Quest 3 into the mix, the frame time stayed consistent enough that motion sickness didn't creep in, which is a big win for anyone who's ever tried a cheaper card and felt the jitter. Memory and storage are where the Xtreme VR starts to feel generous. 32GB of DDR5 at 5600 MHz means you can have a handful of browser tabs, a streaming overlay, and a game all running without the usual stutter you sometimes see on 16GB rigs. The 2TB PCIe 4.0 SSD is a real time saver. Games install in under a minute, level loads that used to take 15 seconds shrink to a few seconds, and you never have to worry about running out of space after a few big titles. In real-world terms, if you're the kind of gamer who likes to jump between Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed without cleaning out your drive, this setup eliminates that friction. Now, let's talk about the day-to-day experience of owning this machine. The tower comes with a tempered side panel and a custom RGB lighting loop that can be turned off or set to pulse in time with your game's soundtrack. It's not just for show, the tempered glass also lets you see the components, which can be a fun visual cue when you're gaming in a darkroom. However, the case isn't the quietest. The stock fans do a decent job moving air, but under heavy load, say, when you're playing a graphically intense game while streaming at 1080p 60fps, the noise can climb to a low mid-40 dB range. It's audible, but not air-splitting. You'll notice it if you're used to silent builds, but most gamers won't find it disruptive. Connectivity is another practical point. The machine ships with Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2, so you can drop a high-speed wireless connection into a dorm room or a cramped apartment without pulling an Ethernet cable. It also includes a decent selection of USB-C and USB-A ports, plus a full-size HDMI 2.1 output and a DisplayPort 1.4a, giving you flexibility to hook up both a monitor and a VR headset simultaneously. The only downside here is that the power supply is a 550W unit. It's enough for the stock components, but if you ever think about upgrading to a higher-tier GPU like an RTX 4070, you'll need to consider a PSU upgrade. So, who should actually click Add to Cart? If you're a gamer who wants a ready-to-play PC out of the box, with no fiddling with BIOS settings, driver installations, or cable management, this is a solid choice. It's especially attractive for people who are new to PC gaming, or for anyone who lives in a space where building a rig isn't feasible. Think college dorms, shared apartments, or even a home office where you need a work-and-play machine. The built-in Windows 11 Home OS means you can start installing games from the Microsoft Store or Steam immediately, and the pre-installed keyboard and mouse, though basic, save you the extra purchase. On the flip side, if you're an enthusiast who enjoys hand-picking each component to squeeze out the most performance per dollar, you'll likely find the price a bit steep compared with building a comparable system yourself. The RTX 5060, while